Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'd like to thank the Art Gallery for giving me a chance to stand on my soapbox, because arts education is very important to me, obviously from the music point of view, but also arts generally. And I brought this very big book. I'm not going to read the book to you, but I want to, all right, I will if you wish. It's the Plowden Report. And it was published in 1963 in the United Kingdom. It was the biggest examination of education at the primary school level ever undertaken by an English-speaking nation. 2 huge volumes, and they came up with some really interesting findings. And the finding on art is this: art is both a form of communication and a means of expression of feelings which ought to permeate the whole curriculum and the whole life of the school. A society which neglects or despises its art is dangerously sick. And that was a finding in 1963. Now, there's nothing new about that. The Greeks knew about that. But we've forgotten. Education in this country is in a very serious circumstance. And I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to education. So, thank you for providing me with the opportunity to talk about the importance of arts education, or perhaps it would be better to talk about the necessity of arts education in the life of an individual, together with the impact the arts can have intrinsically on an individual and extrinsically on other disciplines within the curriculum. The arts, by definition of the current Australian curriculum, consist of music, dance, drama, visual arts, and something called media. We don't have media in New South Wales, but they do in the other states. It's going to be in the arts curriculum. We're not quite sure what media is, but the people who do it are very convinced. Media, however, I don't really want to talk about media, or I'm not going to ignore, I don't really want to talk about poetry and literature for reasons I'll explain later. My ordering of music, dance, visual arts, and drama is deliberate for the following reasons. The first faculty to be developed by the human is hearing. Songs, nursery rhymes, and the like are accessible to a child from birth and indeed pre-birth. The second is physical movement accompanies elementary sounds from the child. So the idea of the baby moving, responding to sound and singing, even in a very, very small way, is important. Once toddling, an infant can move to music, can sing in an elementary and fundamental way, which you might describe loosely as dance. It's not long before toddlers start working with crayon and paint and start doing things with design and the like. Drama, in the form of plays and imaginative games, exists in a very elemental way, and as far as children's games are concerned, shouldn't be interfered with educationally. My view is that drama has a limited place in the secondary curriculum and almost no place in the primary curriculum in its current iteration. But that's not a view widely shared. I was speaking to a drama conference last Friday, the Victorian Drama Teachers Association, and I said to a colleague, I'm going to tell them that there is no point in teaching drama to primary school children and a limited way in secondary school children. And my colleague said, if you want to alienate 250 people in one sentence, then I suggest you do just that. What I did actually talk about was curriculum, but I didn't express my personal views. But I do have, an interesting thing is that this report backs that up. It talks about the fact that once you start moulding children in what you consider drama, you actually stifle creativity, you stifle the imagination. Children learning lines and doing school plays and being drilled around a stage is not drama. And it's also not creative. Anyway, so let's eliminate media and drama and concentrate on music, dance, and visual arts. Arts subjects have a special place in the curriculum because of what they offer intrinsically. In other words, music, dance, and visual arts stimulate the imagination, affect the mind, the heart, the spirit, the soul of the individual, each one of them in a unique way, and each of them in an intangible, priceless, and immeasurable way. We cannot quantify in any accessible way or tangible way how we are affected by art. And therefore, as a subject in a curriculum in the realm of education, how do we measure what is being achieved by children to justify their inclusion as subjects, especially in Australia, where measurement of a child's ability is determined by standardised testing? Now, I'm sure you're aware of this standardised testing which exists currently nationally. It's known as NAPLAN, and it comes up on websites as My School, where schools are graded and rated, and children can work out where they stand within this very limited way of assessing what they can do. Standardised testing, ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you, is a monument to mediocrity, and it perpetuates all the low standards that schools seem to be determined to achieve these days. I can assure you. The thing that should happen is it should be abolished. And if the Federal Minister had any idea of how bad standardised testing was, they would. Music, dance, and visual arts all have aspects which can be known. That is, can be named, described, and classified, and therefore measured. This is oil paint, this is canvas, this is a portrait. We can know and describe those things. This is a scale. It has 8 notes. It has tones and semitones. We can know those things. This is a pas de basse. It consists of a lateral movement followed by a hop and a step. We can describe, we can know, and we can classify. All of these things can be taught as identifiable phenomena, taught sequentially, that is, in an ordered way, and subsequently tested, in short, within the confines of a curriculum. Also, an appreciation of these disciplines can be taught. By appreciation, I mean analysis of existing works which can aid in the comprehension of the work. For example, the catalogue to the current Picasso exhibition is an aid to appreciation. And by appreciation, I certainly do not mean like or dislike. Appreciation includes analysis, observation, questions. Arts education does not provide one with the capacity to like or dislike, but rather should provide one with the ability to make considered, informed, and thoughtful judgments as a result of perception, whether the perception is oral or visual. It is this capacity of the human to perceive, to understand, and to know which is a human's most valuable attributes. Our capacity to perceive means that we can change perceptions and constantly add to our store of knowledge and subsequent comprehension of works of art, which lifts our level of appreciation beyond the like and dislike state to an informed and considered view. Children, it has been my experience, have a heightened capacity, for example, to perceive music irrespective of the period from which it comes at all levels. I have played repertoire from the Renaissance through to the second Viennese school, Berg, Schoenberg, Webern, to kindergarten children who, through questioning, were able to state clearly what was happening in the music and who subsequently amazed their teachers by their level of perception and their ability to answer questions about seemingly complex music. There's a hidden thing in here. It's the idea that if you can't do it, your children can't do it either. And a lot of teaching is about limiting. So my view was, if I play Schoenberg to these 5-year-olds, they have no notion of Schoenberg or the 12-tone system, but I believe we can get a reaction. And we did. These were kindergarten children. And they laughed hysterically at Opus 5, played by an orchestra. They thought it was hugely entertaining and wanted to hear it again at the end of the concert. I also played to a group of grade 5s, the opening of the second Daphnis and Chloe suite of Ravel. And I was talking about the power of music to evoke. And I said to this group of grade 5s, listen to this opening and tell me what it suggests. And we played the first 20 bars, and this grade 5 boy put his hand up and he said, well, to me, it's about 2 people who are going down to a creek and they're about to take their clothes off. And I said, we'll stop right there. Because that's exactly what happens. It's about Daphnis and Chloe going into the water and they're not just going to have a swim. So, but the power of music to suggest and the power of all art to evoke thought should never be underestimated or limited by a teacher's capacity. Earlier, I stated that each one of the arts was unique. It is a view which is hardly original or worthy even of mention. However, the reason I do mention it is because there was a movement in education in the 60s which tried to integrate all the arts, and hundreds of documents were compiled by curriculum writers desperate to prove that music functioned like poetry and dance was like visual arts, and visual arts was like drama, and there should be a common language for the arts as they were all the same. This was a shocking notion. It created the land of bland in curriculum. Like most stupid ideas in education, it was embraced wholeheartedly until it was discovered that the arts didn't actually all work the same way. So we've now come around to thinking that music is different from painting. Isn't that a marvellous step to have arrived at? The problem with arts education lies in the fact that the training of teachers in arts education has become so theoretical and so academic that the concept of the arts being quintessentially practical is all but lost and has all but disappeared in tertiary institutions. And I know because I visit tertiary institutions and I talk to students. So, why bother? Why do we teach the arts? We teach music so children can make their own music. We teach dance so that children can make their own dances. We teach the visual arts so children can paint, draw, design, sculpt, experience colour, shape and form from their own imaginations. In order for children to make, to compose and to choreograph, to draw, to paint, to sculpt, they need to have examples they can observe which provide a vocabulary for the child on which to draw. That is to say, a reserve. I need to explain to you the opposite idea of that. When I was teaching in London in the 60s, the 70s, the integrated day was in, and the integrated day was you let the children do what they like. So if they didn't want to read or they didn't want to do any arithmetic that day, they didn't. If they wanted to play in the sand pit all day, that was fine. If they wanted to play in the sand pit all week, that was fine. It meant the child wasn't receptive. Okay? I had different views. And particularly as I was working in a school where 98% of the children couldn't read. Now, the theory was the child will come around. That, of course, does not happen. The child never comes around. Education is not about options and choices for 5-year-olds. What was interesting was the experiments we tried. So, with one group you would say, here is some paint and paper. You can paint anything. To another group I'd say, here is some paint and paper, paint me a car. The group that had the task of painting the car did the best work because there was a limitation. The group that had the choice, paint anything, often couldn't start because they had no idea what to paint. Recently, I was criticised by an inspector, someone in the curriculum division in Victoria, giving a lesson to children where I was told that I was driving the lesson. That what should have been happening is the children should have been driving the lesson and giving me the creativity. And I said, no, you're wrong. I'm a teacher and they're children. I'm paid to teach and they're at school. Do you get it? And I made an enemy instantly. The point being that unless you lead children through a creative process, nothing happens, I can promise you. The extrinsic values of arts education are now subjects for PhD candidates, neuroscientists, psychologists, brain surgeons, and the like. The empirical data available, for example, on the efficacy of an organised arts curriculum in relation to brain development and the impact of arts education on all other subjects is now in, and the jury is completely of a unanimous opinion, particularly in music, that the brain grows, children learn other subjects faster, they have a greater sense of comprehension, they have greater concentration, they have greater focus. Now, I want to stress that's not a reason for teaching an art subject. We teach music because it's good. We teach painting because it's good. We teach literature and poetry because they're good, not because they make the brain bigger or they learn Spanish faster. But with parents, pardon me, with parents, it's a potent argument. I was at a private school recently, I shan't name the school or the state, and I was asked by the music teacher to talk about the value of music education. I said to the parents, music education is spiritually, emotionally, incredibly enriching for the child. And I could see the parents going, oh God, here it goes. And then I said, and the evidence is now in. The children who study music seriously have bigger brains and they earn more money. At the end of the talk, I was swamped by parents. What instrument should my child learn? How often should they practice? It was astonishing. When you put arts education in dollars and cents, it changes the whole notion of the thing. The Greeks knew how powerful music was, for example, and we know as much as we do about ancient civilizations because of their art, their visual art, their buildings, their literature, their poetry, their drama. The arts in education help children to make sense of their lives and to provide an avenue of escape from reality on one hand and a pathway to help make sense of reality on the other. In short, a pleasant paradox. Music by its nature brings children into contact with the abstract and the intangible. My theory is music does not describe. Dance by its nature provides children with a physical outlet through its movement and by its nature abstract but in a different way from music. The visual arts, though often dealing with abstract themes, are tangible, perceptible and describable in essence without necessarily conveying precise meaning. Music in and of itself has no specific meaning and cannot be described other than its own terms. Even a title piece of music or program music still does not describe the music. The ultimate example of music's inability to describe can be seen in Richard Wagner's Ring Cycle. Without explanation and detailed examination of the score, there is no way a novice could ever understand one note of the ring. When Merce Cunningham first visited this country with his special dance troupe, contemporary dancers from the USA, audiences left the theatres in droves because they didn't know what it meant. Many here would remember the huge outcry over the purchase of blue poles by the Whitlam government in the 70s. What did it mean was heard on almost every lip. It was painted while they were all drunk. This type of reaction shows a fundamental lack of education. While it is reasonable to ask what anything means, it is also equally reasonable, so far as artworks are concerned, to suggest that an artwork doesn't mean anything. Art in and of itself doesn't do anything. It is our perception of art and the way we are directed to perceive it which matters. It starts when we are children, or at least should do, and stay with us all our lives. The importance of art education lies in a teacher's ability to be able to encourage children with the notion that art evokes, implies, suggests, and in the case of music and dance, in visual art can describe, but equally within its power to describe, also evoke and suggest. The great question, what is art, of course, will occupy our minds as long as humans think and debate the notion of art. Arts education should encourage children to debate this issue also, and in so doing, exercise their minds to constantly refer to example. The strength of our debate lies in direct proportion to the depth of our knowledge. And while we may never actually answer the question, what is art, what we learn on the way will remain with us to some degree and add to our store of knowledge all our lives. John Carey, the British author, wrote a book in 2007 entitled What Good Are the Arts? If you haven't read it, it's a terrific book. It provoked a fury in some quarters and was described as a work of genius in other quarters. One critic described it as the silliest book she has ever read. Carey comes down on the side of literature as the superior art. All other things fade into significance against literature. Something to which I haven't referred, not because I don't value literature, but because I wanted to limit my talk to music, dance, and visual arts. My own view is that all the arts function differently and in so doing affect us in different ways. Obviously, I place music at the top of the food chain because of its abstract nature and its intangible qualities. This is something I can't prove with any empirical evidence at all, and all of us will have reasons for valuing what we consider to be our favourite art form. I work principally in opera, possibly the most extreme of all the musical styles and the cause of endless debate. I love opera, I love working with singers, I love its ridiculous nature, I love its excesses, and I'm never happier than when I'm in the pit conducting a group of singers. I also know the power of education. And I love teaching for the same reasons, because of its power. And indeed have been involved in teaching for nearly 50 years and never tire of it. I also know the power of arts education and the way it can impact on children and how arts education, be it dance, visual art or music, has the capacity to change lives and stimulate thought. I'm going to finish with an example, two examples of the way children perceive. We were doing a performance of the Magic Flute for children at the Arts Centre in Melbourne, and the performance was in German with the dialogue in English, and there were a group of 4-year-olds in the audience, and someone said, what on earth are the 4-year-olds doing at a performance of the Magic Flute in German? How are they getting anything out of this? The 4-year-olds were beside themselves with delight. And as you know, one of the lines in the Magic Flute is, when the Queen of the Night comes and vanishes, leaving Tamino stranded, Tamino says, did that really happen or did I imagine it? And this performance, he said the line, and this 4-year-old said, "No, it really happened." What was interesting was none of the other children in the audience laughed. All the other children agreed, yes, it happened. You must be stupid not to work that out. What was interesting was, on the following Saturday night, we had another performance. And he said the same line again, "Did I imagine that all that really happened?" And there was another child in the audience who said, "Yes, it really happened." And the whole audience went up in hysterics. The orchestra lost it. They couldn't play. The Tamino started to laugh. It was unbelievable. Reactions to the stage. My final story was we were in the Dandenong Ranges with a group of children. We were having a very long period of developing opera with these children. I'm watching my clock very carefully, Andrew. And we had 3 things. We go to the Dandenong Ranges, we take music to the children, we then bring them into our rehearsal venue, and then we take them to the theatre. It's a 3-pronged attack. And we do it all in original languages. And we were singing to this group of 5th graders, "O mio babino caro" from Gianni Schicchi. And I said to the children, listen to the music because she's saying something to somebody. And what I had was a soprano here and the Gianni Schicchi there, all in Italian. The children had no preparation. So I said to this particular class, "What's she saying?" This girl put her hand up and she said, "She's asking for something." And I said, "To whom is she saying it?" He said, "It looks like her father." I said, "Why do you know it's her father?" And I said, "It's because it doesn't sound like a love song." And then the next child said, "I think she wants to go out with her boyfriend," which is all true. And then she said, "But her father won't let her." So I said, "Why won't the father let her?" And this kid said, "Well, could it be they're from different families? Like, he's rich and she's not?" And on it went. They got the whole story of Schicchi from this aria in Italian. So I don't buy the idea that we have to dumb down arts education for children or that we have to dumb down any education for children. And here's your homework. Tonight, when you go home, you send an email to Peter Garrett, the Federal Minister for Education, and you say, "Mr. Garrett, I won't vote for you unless you make arts education mandatory right throughout the country." Thank you very much.